one. Raul, thank you so much. Sorry about all the technical difficulties here, but I think it's working and we're gonna figure it out.
They
Um,
happen. You're good.
yeah. So this is your day off today. So you're relaxed and
Semi
been
day off.
working all week. Semi day off. Yeah. But when you're in your profession or your line of business, is like, do you ever get a day off or
Not
it's just
quite.
okay?
To get it off, I have to really make a plan for it. Otherwise, I'd rather stay busy.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So what, can we just so the audience I mean, actually, I don't know either. Can we kinda have an idea a little bit about your background and where you grew up and,
Sure.
just
Sure.
some of the
Well,
stuff that kinda influences Raul today?
yeah, yeah. I'm actually first generation American. I born and raised in LA, East LA to be precise. So I did go to schools out there, Garfield High School. If everyone's seen Stand and Deliver,
Mhm.
that I went to that high school, then did a little bit of
Okay.
East LA college out there, and then from East LA, we moved to South Central LA, and, we actually lived through the '92 riots out there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got to see all that up close and personal. It was very scary, to say the least.
Yeah. You were actually right there in the heat of it, right in the
Yeah,
middle of it?
yeah. Actually, at the time, I had one of my car broke down, and I had to take the bus from East LA College to South Central LA because we had moved, and before, we didn't have any smartphones to keep us informed on the minute, by the second, actually. So by the time I
Yeah.
was through my 2 hour, well, I was halfway through my 2 hour commute, it had already set off as far as the verdicts
Oh
go,
my
and
gosh.
everybody starting to act up, and then by the time I got home, I can see from the distance, yeah, there was, like, smokestacks. I'm like, "Well, okay, something's definitely going on." I just, didn't know
Yeah.
what. By the time I got home,
Jeez.
my mom was pretty scared. She was like, "Wow, I just wanted you to come home safely." I'm like, "Wow, what's
Yeah.
going on? Look at the TV." And,
Yeah.
wow, my jaw dropped.
Well, thank God you made it through.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting how God works like that. Yeah, it's really so yeah, I'm a huge fan of Michael Conley. I'm not sure if you know that author, but I'm reading a book right now that has he's kind of investigating. It's fictional, but he's investigating a murder that happened during those riots and they kind of like used the riots kind of like as a cover. Anyway, sorry, side note, but yeah, that but I mean it's crazy to think. I mean that was over 30 years ago now, right? I mean is that
Yes.
it's kinda dating us, I guess, but
I did come across a, National Geographic documentary on that, and then I showed my family because obviously my kids weren't born at that time.
uh-huh.
30 years, since I told them, "Hey, check this out. This is what I actually lived through," and their jaws dropped. It's like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, that was a crazy times. Do you think that kinda I mean, obviously, it was a big influence to you. Um, I mean, just growing up in East LA, I mean, that's a huge there's a huge culture, a lot of, very rich, a lot of things going on there. It's interesting in this book, they talk about this group called White Fence. Have you ever heard of them? Or I guess
I know
it's
that white fence is very familiar to anyone who came from around there because that's the name of a gang.
uh-huh. 'Cause
That's the
I
name.
guess that's one of the oldest gangs, like, in America or something like that, or at least on
It's
the East
one of
Coast,
them.
sorry, not in America. Yeah. It's
Growing up,
interesting,
yeah,
it's
especially, being a kid, you hear a lot of what gangs are there, and so that would be one of them, and I'm sure they're still around. I mean,
yeah.
obviously, I don't live there anymore, but I'm sure they're still around.
But I guess one of the fascinating things about that is they actually started at a church. They kinda just,
Interesting.
like, started as, like, a church group. Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause I did some research on them just because they mentioned them in this book, so I was like, "Oh my gosh," because I think their inception is, like, back in the '40s or '50s.
I think so, I
So
think you're right.
yeah, and they actually started just as, like, a small group at a church, so obviously, their intentions I mean, you hope that people that start a small group at a church, their intentions would be good, but
Right.
it's just interesting to see how things happened, and, I mean, do you feel not to jump around too much or whatever, but, I guess we're kinda fast forwarding because 'cause I'm really eager, I'm excited to hear, I've kinda briefly, heard what you've had to say, and I've seen your pictures, and I'd seen, the different things you're doing, but I guess I'm just so fascinated. I guess I wanna hear the whole story, but I know we're kinda limited on time, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just how does somebody from, East LA go from that to, like, this? I mean, I'm sure there's so
Yeah, the
many, you
I
know.
think the bottom line, the biggest factor is Jesus.
Mhm.
Obviously, I wasn't a Christian all my life, and then I met, shout out to Lewis, my friend Lewis out in LA. He is
Okay.
currently an LAPD officer who introduced me to Jesus, when I was in high school, actually. So I did become a believer then,
So that
and,
was in the '90s or
that was, yeah, late '80s, early '90s. Yes,
okay,
'cause
okay,
I'm class of '91,
okay.
so it was in during my
Oh,
junior
we're
year.
5 years different. We're 5 years different.
There you go.
I'm class in '86.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, he introduced me to Jesus and as the impact of Jesus has on anybody, you want to be bold and it just happens. You're filled
Yeah.
with God's spirit and you become bold and then you live the Christian life and then unfortunately life happens. So I went through my
Mhm.
period of going through a desert and all that and then you have your family, and then, you realize, hey, Jesus is it has to be a focus in the family.
Right.
That still didn't happen because we did the travel ball thing and they grew up in baseball and softball, my kids did.
Okay.
And then that one thing called COVID happened, and
Yeah.
I always had the conviction, the little tug in my heart, like, "Hey, your kids are growing older. We need to do something." And then COVID happened, and then sure enough, I think it was a blessing because I said, "Hey, we got to focus on God."
Mhm.
So we did that, and actually during that time we were living in the desert, and churches were closing down, and then
Mhm.
there were churches who weren't closing down. One of them was out in San Jacinto. Tom Hughes from Hope
Mhm.
for Our Times. He didn't close, so we were going there, which was, what is it, 45 minutes to an hour commute.
Yeah.
And then, so we were going there for 3 years, then eventually made our way here to the Garden where we're at now.
I see. Okay. So that's a little bit of a gap between 90, you said 91, you felt like you were born again, saved, and then COVID. I mean, that's almost a
That's
20,
a huge
25
jump,
year
yeah.
gap. So
So that paints a
when
picture.
did you move out to the desert?
We moved out in, what was it, '89 around there?
Oh, wow, okay. So you're
Yeah,
basically okay, so I'm sorry, so so you finished high school in the desert?
No, 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 I finished high
No.
school. I'm sorry, you're right. No, no, so I'm class of '91, so I'm sorry, I'm a decade apart. We moved out here in 98. I got a little
Okay.
dyslexic there. So,
Yeah.
we're in '98.
98. Yeah, no
Yeah, yeah.
problem. Okay, so 91 you graduate, 98 you move out to the desert, so you're in LA for another 7 years, kind
Yeah.
of what do you like when you first became a Christian, do you feel like I mean, I remember when I first became a Christian, and I've talked about this on the podcast, I thought all of a sudden I was gonna hear some divine voice, when I wanted to make decisions, like, "Hey, should I do this or should I go this direction?" And God was gonna say to me, "Justin, now go to the right." And I've just never had that happen. I mean, I feel like people say you become a Christian and then you just get this wisdom and you get this discernment and you get this new path, a new direction, which I think is kind of true, you know.
Right,
However, you do get, I believe you get the helper, you get the
sure,
Holy Spirit, but I strongly believe that God is a God of love and therefore has to allow free will. So you
right,
still have to make your choices.
sure,
You're responsible for your decisions. You have
sure,
to make your choices. And if, God kind of said like, "Hey, do this," well then that's not really you making a choice. You know what I mean? That's kind of you just have like the cheat sheet going through
sure.
life and so can you kind of talk about that? Like so you got saved around the 90s when you first
Right.
become a Christian, how are you making decisions or how are you, moving past that?
Yeah, no, well, when you first become a believer, you focus in the word and you study it, and because you wanna engage and share your faith, you wanna, get as much information as possible as far as what you believe and why, and which leads
Mhm.
into, apologetics and all that, so you look into that.
Yeah. Is that what you did?
That's what kind of yeah, I scratched the surface on a lot of things, not necessarily seeing it through, but
Yeah.
because I was pretty bold in my sharing of Jesus
Uh-huh.
in the bus,
Oh,
in the
right away, as soon
classroom.
as you became a Christian?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you share
Okay.
the good news left and right, and
Yeah.
one thing that I can reflect upon is when I became a believer being so young, yeah, to the point where you're sharing Jesus everywhere to everyone.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know, everyone's walk is different, but I don't know if you can relate to that. But that was due to Lewis's example too, who introduced me to Jesus. So
Yeah. Where is Lewis these days?
he's in LA. He's in LA. He's
Okay.
an he's an LAPD officer, but
Okay.
he he's out there and
Yeah.
still keep in contact with him. And
Oh,
but
that's good.
to get back, it was his example, and of course, like Scripture says, we're a new creation in Jesus, and you just want to share the good news.
Yeah.
And in those days, I'm still, late teens and going into my young adult years and all that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was
I
the
a
beginning
little
journey
bit
there.
personal stuff with me. I have some Lewises in my past or, and my mentors and whatnot.
Mhm.
And a few of those people have fallen away and it's been really rough to be, frank.
Sure,
It kind of messes with, your faith and I think I've remained strong, but it's hard when these people that were so influential on teaching you the truth and
right,
and then now I don't know if you have any stories like that, but I have about 3 people that were very core in my, being born again and being saved that
sure.
have, kind of fallen away, and that's not fun. So I don't know,
No, it's
hopefully you don't
not.
have any experiences like that,
Well
but
well, yeah, I guess I do, but more notably would be me because I was one of them too, because,
Mhm.
you go in limbo, for me at least. Life goes
Yeah.
on, you go to school, and then you make future decisions where what you're gonna do and all that, and
Mhm.
you get married and just life just finds a way to just,
I
preoccupy
hear
you,
that.
you know?
Preach, brother. I hear that. I nobody can relate more than me. I mean, I'm trying
Yeah,
to stay
so,
steady,
I
but
mean, as
it's
much as I
man,
like
life
to
gets in
point
the
out
way, right?
yeah, I like as much as I like to point out, who might I know, I think more so me, because, it's funny we should bring this up because I'm 52 years old as of the 4th of this month, and that was just a few days ago.
Yeah,
And,
happy birthday.
when you're growing up in your 20s and 30s, you're immortal. Nothing
Right.
that's in your head,
Yeah.
well, you're Superman and nothing can hold you down. And
Right.
I'm here to testify that at my age, I know I'm not old, I'm not elder or anything like that, but you will cross that bridge of like,
Yeah.
whoa, we're burning
Yep.
daylight here.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have unlimited years. We're kinda limited here, and you can look back on the years that you didn't maybe, that you felt that perhaps you weren't as efficient as you wanted to be.
Mhm.
But I feel like God is not a God of shame.
Sure,
I actually feel like the devil is a spirit of shame,
sure.
and God, or I'm sorry, the devil wants to use that as a tool to keep us down. And until a time machine is invented or something like that, the past is the past. I'm gonna learn from it and, try to take one step at a time here and make I don't know if you've gotten to that or if you're at that same point as me, but man, I feel like I know so many people that just let the past just rot, just destroy their future. And
Right.
it's like, you can't do anything about that. Learn from it and move on. There's
Especially in
nothing,
Jesus. Yeah, especially when
right?
when you tasted the fruit of Jesus where all things are, they've been taken away as far as the east is to the west. Our sins are
Yes,
cast away from us. So we
absolutely.
can't
Yeah.
afford we can't afford to dwell on it. And so after going through that wilderness period for me,
Mhm.
here I am, okay, I'm a believer now. I have my family. They're getting older. It's like I have to do my part. And a lot of it came from good solid Bible teaching, I to this day so when was a young believer, I woke up, going to school, I woke up to good solid teaching through the radio. There was no internet. This was through a
Yeah.
little alarm clock waking up at like 4 in the morning. and because I'm used to getting up early, and then listening to
Yeah.
people like Chuck Missler, Rob McCoy, Jack Hibbs, great solid Bible teacher, Chuck Smith,
Mhm.
all these awesome teachers, John MacArthur, who's in heaven now,
Mhm.
and that's been like for me big old lamppost along my journey that I can look back and say, "Hey, this grounded me from those teachings."
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, it left me with the big question, okay, what now? So
Right.
after having done the travel ball thing for like 10 years, more than a decade, thousands of
Mhm.
dollars invested, being a coach out of town up in the upland, because I wasn't just a spectator, I was actually a coach.
Yeah.
Walking away from it after a routine, it's like, now with this COVID thing, we need to reflect on God. And
Yeah.
slowly we've been doing that and going back, especially with teachings like with Rob McCoy. Wow, we have to claim our Christian heritage, especially as believers.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, as far as my role as a father, from Deuteronomy 6, we get the Shema that as instructions given to our fathers, we're supposed to teach our kids the word,
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
table and dwell on it. And to this day, if you ever come to my house, I have a mezuzah on my doorposts, little signs here and there that remind me, hey, whether I like it or not, I'm a priest of my household.
Yeah. I'm
And
sorry, I'm not familiar with that term. What is that? Mezuzah? What is that?
yeah, in the Jewish culture, in every room, there's a little religious scroll pouch that they put in an angle on their doorposts. That in Deuteronomy 6, they were instructed to put the word of God in their hearts and in
Mhm.
their household and whatnot. So I
Okay.
adopted that. I adopted that. So
It's called a mezuzah? I've never heard of that. I like that.
yeah, check it out, and in that
Yeah.
mezuzah, on the surface, you'll see it, but there is a scroll in there, and it is
Uh-huh.
Deuteronomy chapter 6. So
Okay. That is
look
so
into it, check
cool.
it out. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's
that
so
was my
interesting
journey.
that I didn't even know you coached baseball, but I'm a brand new coach. Actually, I coached my very first game on Monday.
Okay.
It's for my 7-year-old. He's doing baseball. So
Nice.
tonight is my second game that I'll be coaching. I
There
didn't
you
even know
go.
that you had that experience. That's so cool. But I
Yeah,
mean,
so
it sounds like what you're saying. Let me make sure I hear you correctly. You're
sure.
kind of saying like maybe it distracted you for a little while, or do you feel like it was a very positive experience? Or can you kind
You
of talk
know,
about that a little bit? Or
it's funny you should say that, and God has a funny way of putting all these things in your path to put them together at the moment where you're at. Let me explain.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So we practice at the elite level. Yes, we did the rec ball thing through a local park, but after a while, your kids are scouted out like, hey, you know what? I think your kids can work at a better level, higher level.
Yeah.
So we worked at the elite travel ball levels to where, you're putting in a lot of practice, very disciplined. It costs tons of
Mhm.
money and you learn plays, you learn here, learn there, to where now, as soon as because as a family, for the first time yesterday, we got together. It's like, okay, I know we abandoned travel ball, but we're gonna apply those principles to our
Ministry,
activism.
like kinda what you
Yeah,
yeah,
our
yeah, okay,
activism,
activism.
exactly.
You call
So,
it activism or ministry or same thing
yes,
or
either or.
either or? Okay.
Yeah, our ministry or activism. For me to say ministry, that's a tough pill to swallow because it's like, well, can God use
Okay.
me? So there's that little doubt. So that's why I don't call it that.
Yeah,
I
I
should,
got
but
you.
I don't.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, like
Well, I'm
so when they hear, okay, plays at first, okay, we turn double, sack fly, they know what I'm talking about. They're like, whoa,
mhm,
we should respond that way. Johnny on the spot with answers because the world thinks they have great questions, but God has awesome answers.
right.
So
Absolutely.
so basically our
Okay.
activism or our ministry comes from another teaching from Rob McCoy. He talks about Charlie Kirk with what happened to him, but reflecting back, he's the one that instilled in me politics and religion will always go hand in hand.
Right.
So I never at some point in my walk, I never accepted that. I always believed, Christianity should be separate from politics. But Rob McCoy instilled in me that no, they both go hand in hand. And the example he gives is Matthew 16, where
Mhm.
Jesus is walking with his disciples through Caesarea Philippi,
Uh-huh.
And he stops and asks them in the red light district where there's altars to many gods, "Hey, guys, who do people say that I am?"
Uh-huh.
And then they turn around, "Well, some say you're a prophet, you're Elijah." "Okay, well,
Uh-huh.
now what do you say that I am? Who do
Who
you
do
say
you
that?"
say that I am? Yeah, yeah. Who
And
do you
then
say that I am?
they turn
Yeah.
around and Peter answers, "You are Christ, the Son of the living God." And he turns around,
Uh-huh.
"Yes, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And you
Uh-huh.
are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my," and everybody says, "church." If
But
people
actually
knew.
that word has a deeper meaning than church.
Yes, it does. So that's Rob McCoy pointed out that that word there is not church, it's ecclesia. So
Ecclesia, correct. A
yeah,
lot of
so
people
that.
interpret it as church, but it's more of almost a government structure, if you will.
Yes, yes. So basically, our marching orders there are to go into the ecclesia, that because we're believers and because we have a message that we should be in the public square. And this was
Mhm.
emphasized by Charlie Kirk,
Yes.
everywhere he went. And I actually knew his story meeting Rob McCoy before he started, sharing all this in the public square, which fascinated me because that is the message for the church. We should be at school board meetings, in the city halls, police stations, everywhere that government is involved. Those are our mandates due to Matthew 16.
I actually believe that it's Satan that, has kind of influenced the culture to try to divide the 2,
Sure.
because religion and politics, when you look through the truth or the gospel message, there is no division. It
Right.
is very clearly all-encompassing as far as, Jesus didn't go into the temple and say, "Well, you guys are selling a bunch of stuff here, and I guess we'll just separate that. You guys have your market here, and then we'll have our, you know, religious activity." No, 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 no. These are all together. These are all,
Yeah.
there is no separation. And I believe that it's actually the enemy that has instilled that idea in our culture that for some reason they're supposed to be separate. They're not supposed to be separate.
Well, and then, then we look at that section of scripture and it doesn't help any that the translation isn't as accurate as it should be. So then
Right,
the message is not seen when it's presented at church, and we almost get nothing out of it. But when you know the language, it's like, wow, that's what it means.
right. Yeah,
That's when you
yeah.
find your position in the church. That's where your voice is found, that, hey, I need to be involved in the public square.
Well, hopefully, can I just take a few seconds and kind of pitch? Because we really got to get into. I have all the time you want, but I really want to get into what you have going on. But let me just take a couple seconds and kind of
Sure,
pitch what my folks are working on. The FCIM,
sure.
which stands for Faith and Cultural Impact Ministry, which I think has a real opportunity. Because, as an example, my dad met with the pastor, and hopefully it's okay I say this public. I don't know. I'm just gonna do it. My dad met with the pastor,
Sure.
and he made the comment he didn't want to be a political pastor, and I think a
Oh,
lot
wow.
of pastors have that kind of opinion, and I don't fault them for it. Hopefully you don't think I'm trying to say that that's a bad thing or anything. Like, I mean, everybody has their own cross to bear, has their own decisions to make, right?
Well,
However, I
yeah,
feel.
no,
Let me just
I
add
do
one thing.
blame them
I
for that. They don't get a pass.
Okay, okay,
They
okay,
don't
okay. With
pastors do not get a pass in my book.
Okay, no, I don't. Yeah, I just don't wanna, get my folks in trouble or anything, but what I wanted to say was that that's why I think it's so FCIM could be so valuable, because what it can always be like, "Hey, no, 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 those guys are doing that crazy religious, politics stuff." You know
Right,
what I mean? So
right.
that's what we're kind of excited about getting going with, FCIM, and I'm not sure if you know, Charlie Kirk's birthday is coming up on the 14th.
Of this month?
Let me get the Yeah, let me get the
Okay,
dates correct here, and we're
interesting.
having an event over at the garden sorry, not the garden, at, what is it? The River Shopping Center over at,
Okay.
Rancho Mirage.
Rancho Mirage.
Yeah, at 6 p.m.
Okay.
So, I'm planning on going, my folks are planning on going, and, I don't know if you guys have plans that night, but at
Yeah, we'll
6
look into it.
p.m.
It'd be nice to go to, for sure.
Yeah, as soon as I get, but it's October 14th, 6 p.m. at the river. I think they're still kind of trying to get things together. I mean, they're kind of doing everything last minute. So but we're hoping to I'm kind of putting this coalition together, and I'm hoping you can be a part of it. We
Sure.
actually want to have a very big event at the beginning of December.
Okay.
So there's a person by the name of Christian Yelmsberg, and he runs the I don't know if you're familiar with him. He runs a ministry around the valley helping people that are homeless.
Okay.
So what they do is they
That's
get a
awesome.
van together. I think they work with Narrow Door once in a while, but they are separate from Narrow Door. And Christian's probably gonna criticize me for what I'm saying here because I don't have it all. But it's what is it? Oh, Street Life Project.
Okay.
It's called Street Life Project. It's a homeless outreach, and they are very active. Them, I'm hoping you can be involved. FCIM will be involved. I'm trying to get a hold of the local Turning Point chapter at
Sure.
that was. Are you familiar with Turning Point?
Yeah, the thing
Yeah,
Charlie.
yeah. So they have a local one here at the College of the Desert, and I've reached out to them multiple times, and I cannot get a hold of them. So I want to get a hold of them, and then also Narrow Door. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Narrow Door. Have you heard of them?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. They
They,
do
uh,
I've
they have an
served over there
outreach too or
before.
something like that.
Yeah. They actually have a warehouse up, kinda like up Washington, like north, kinda I think it's Bermuda Dunes around that area.
Mhm,
They get a lot of deliveries, like crates of food,
mhm.
and then they have a warehouse where they, store the food, and then they have volunteers come in and make, like, bags or baskets or whatever, and then,
Right.
I think usually on the weekends, people drive up and they give these, food baskets away, so they're very active. So, anyway, we're gonna have this event on the 14th at the river, but like I said, we wanna do a big one at the beginning of December, and we're thinking about having it at some sort of like football field. But
Okay.
basically, what Christian's idea is that like the one that was in Arizona, the
Right.
really that had I don't know if well there was tens of thousands of people there. He wants
Right.
to have another big one like that here in the desert, and so
To
he thinks
specifically for that or to, like, honor Charlie or what?
it would basically be trying to that whole "I am Charlie" movement.
Okay. Alright.
It's
Yeah.
kinda keeping that flame lit, keeping the
That's
momentum
awesome. Yeah.
going. Yeah, just kind of trying to
That's
not
awesome.
let that die out, you know?
Well, I'm gonna ask you to please send me all the information, and we'll keep
Yeah,
in touch on
I
that because
will
I
for
really
sure.
yeah, it's very interesting. But before we go on, I'd like to touch on what you said, Justin,
Yeah,
how I don't wanna pussyfoot around, leaders who say they're not political or not wanna keep their Christianity political.
yeah,
And to that I say, they have to be bold,
right.
and I would like to rebuke that. We have to claim our Christian heritage, especially in the public square, because Satan has had too much time to try to separate us from that, so Satan can have the
Mhm.
advantage to do what, everything having to do with Christ, to abandon it and hurt us.
Yes.
So,
I do agree with you. And I even like to give our leaders more tools because, a lot of the times they're afraid of losing their IRS status.
right,
And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I like that we're live here and we're being recorded.
right,
That anytime the IRS has pushed or the 501(c)(3) has pushed back,
right,
typically the IRS folds because they don't want to create precedents.
right,
So what the IRS will do is they'll send scary letters or phone calls, etc. And then, but if the nonprofit pushes back, typically the IRS will fold. From this is the information that I've heard, and I think Jack Hibbs he's a big because he's one of the leading proponents about this, isn't he?
yeah.
Or is
So
that the one
what
of the
to that
yeah
To that, I would say, because people, especially if, say, for example, our pastor is afraid of that, I would say get in touch with Jack Hibbs, get in touch with those who are political, who are like with Jack Hibbs. I don't know if you know this about Jack Hibbs, but he actually during every election cycle, he walks in personally into every city hall and demands the list of all the candidates, and
mhm
they fear him. They fear him in the
mhm
sense that they know who he is, and he has thousands of people who go to his congregation. So
right
the people who are running, they're, "Hey, heads up, Jack Hibbs came in," and so now they're put
Right.
on check. So that's the way it
Yeah.
has to work, we the people. So when we shy away
Mhm.
from the public square in the political arena, we're hurting ourselves, and that's how
Yeah.
Satan gains ground.
I'm with you.
And so
Preach,
was
brother.
the
Speak bold. I love the way you speak boldly. I mean, this is we need more like you. You're a
No, okay, so
soldier.
check this out. You know, we have activism. I mean, we have our ministry on college campuses. We've been so far to UCLA, and we've been at Cal State Fullerton, and their jaw drops. My jaw drops that, and to some degree, I learned this from Rob McCoy too. That our country was formed out of the Bible. Our founding fathers had the wisdom to put together a government based on the Bible,
Mhm.
and we reflect that. We actually reference that through Deuteronomy. I'm sorry, Exodus 18 before the Ten Commandments. So Moses just led the children of Israel out of slavery, and then
Mhm.
his he tells his father Jethro, his father-in-law, I should say, and he tells him the story of what they just went through, and he's like, "Oh, that's fascinating." And then the following day, he observes Moses on a hillside all day sorting out 3 to 5 million people, their arguments and their disputes, and his
Mhm.
father-in-law rebukes him. He tells
Mhm.
him, "Dude, what are you doing, man? You're gonna run yourself to the ground. What you need to do
Yeah.
is what you need to do is get good men amongst you, people who are of good character, who do not covet, who are godly essentially, and from them you're going to divide them thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Gee,
Mhm.
our founding fathers had the wisdom, thousands, federal, state, hundreds, fifties, counties, tens, city. That's where we get our pattern for our US government from the
Yeah.
Bible. And then
Yes. Yeah.
how do we rule our nation? Our founding fathers, Justin, had the wisdom to reference Isaiah 33:22. The Lord is our
Mhm.
God, our lawgiver, and our judge. Well, from
Yes.
there we got the executive. From there we got the legislative. From there we got the Supreme Court, our judicial branch.
I
So our
wish, Raul, I wish churches would realize this more because so many churches are, I hate to say it, they're dictatorships. You know,
Justin,
as much as they try to say that they have a board and all
yeah,
this, there's
yeah,
typically one person. Think if you're Satan. Think if you're the enemy. You're like, oh my gosh, look at these suckers
yep,
building these huge, big groups of people with
yep,
one person at the top.
yep,
Boom. Take
yep.
out that top person, everybody else folds. Why can't our churches see that they need to build in a hierarchy like what you're talking about?
We have an awesome heritage to claim in Jesus' name. But see, we don't leave it up to the pastors, Justin. This is your message. This is my message. And it
Right.
will go to the pastor, believe it or not. It will lead to him. And then where are you getting this information? Because they're willfully being ignorant. Because, like
Yeah.
you said, pastors, let's not make this political. Okay, well, you won't preach it, but I will. And that's the
Right.
boldness that
Absolutely.
we get, and that's the permission that, like my ministry, I didn't go to the church and ask for permission. I have my marching orders
No.
from the word.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. I gotta have my folks listen to this because they keep saying, "Oh, well, we need to ask this person, this
No,
person."
no, no,
Well, how
no.
about you ask? How about you ask God, and
Yes,
you move forward with the direction that God is moving. How about
yes.
Anyway, to me, it's these people that. Anyway, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I love where you're going with this. This is so good.
Yeah, so
Thank you, brother.
we have a heritage to claim. I'm first generation American, and I envy the Americans who've had families who've been in World War II and Vietnam War and this and that, and who've been politically active for years. And I'm just first generation American, so I'm the person outside looking in. I am U.S.
Hmm.
born. I am an American citizen, but I envy all those who've had that awesome history behind them and still want to ask
Hmm.
for permission when God has given them that boldness in black and white to go out there, step out and claim it. Because I am.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
not holding my tongue,
Good.
especially when I hear a message of Matthew 16, and upon this church I will build, upon this rock I will build my ecclesia. I will be loud. I
Ecclesia.
actually did that in service. I was loud. I said,
Yeah.
it says ecclesia.
Yeah. Good.
And you know what? Because we have to be students of the Bible and apply it
Hmm.
and take it out to the whole world. And this is what it
Yes.
means to be involved in the ecclesia.
So for some reason, I had some questions here about human trafficking and modern slavery. Were those questions for you, or did I mix that up
Yeah,
with a
okay,
different
so
podcast? Okay.
my calling is abortion abolitionism. So it doesn't have to
Yes.
be true for everybody else. It can be someone running at the school board, you know?
Uh-huh.
It can be someone running for mayor. It can be someone, it can be wherever God calls you. But for us, for me and my family, we have always been, we've looked into to in order to be active, we had to find our spot. So I think what attracted us
Mhm.
was the abortion issue. So the
Mhm.
abortion for us, our journey began with obviously looking up, abortion and how it works here in America, and learned everything. In fact, we went to Seth Gruber's clinic out in Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and
Uh-huh.
I did a lot of research. We've actually done abortion mill activism. We've been to the abortion mills, and then
Uh-huh.
in the process of actually seeing what the abortion issue is here in America, in doing my research, I ran into the abolitionists of abortion. I'm like, well, who are these group of people? They sound like a
Yeah.
minority, and I didn't even
Yeah.
know anything about them until I ran into what they had to
I
say.
never heard of him until, you're the person that introduced me to it.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's just as new as you because I had really done my research up until recently. I discovered them, and there's just so much information to the point
Uh-huh.
where you find out that I'm going to send you. If your audience can actually look up the Foundation to Abolish Abortion on YouTube. So to make a long story short, I now identify as an abolitionist. It does borrow from the abolitionists of slavery, where a minority
Uh-huh.
group of people stood up, primarily Christians, turned around to the majority who went along with the flow and said, "This is not godly. This is not right. This has to change." And so now it's translated to our present day of abortion abolitionists to where
Uh-huh.
we want the abolition of abortion right here, right now, an immediate stop upon biblical principle
Yes.
that this is wrong. And so
Yes.
in my research, I have found out that pro-life organizations actually oppose the abolition of abortion. There's a lot going on in the background. Abolitionists have actually introduced laws to treat very simple laws. Treat the
Uh-huh.
human in the womb as you would the human outside of the womb. So
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that.
if I were to kill my neighbor, I would actually be, I'll be arrested and I'd have to pay for my crime. So let's
Right.
apply the same rule to whoever kills a baby in the womb.
I
So
think that I'm right with you. I'm a strong believer that is the way that God actually interacts with us. I believe that, people say, well, God does this as far as like whispering in people's ear or God does that. And I have a really hard time with some of that kind of stuff because I feel like you're kind of taken away from free will on some. I don't really want to debate it or argue with people.
sure,
However, sometimes I have a hard time hearing about those stories.
right,
But if you're a believer, and most people believe that babies, really are, maybe they don't directly believe that babies are created by God, but um, I think, they believe that the egg and the sperm and etcetera, but, for me as a believer, I believe that God does that 300 to 400,000 times per day.
right,
So with God doing that 300 to 400,000 times a day, that I believe that actually is how he executes his perfect plan.
sure,
And so I believe that when us, he gave us free will so that, we have these choices, but when us humans make these choices to kill or to end God's creation before
and
it
the
has
womb.
even started, before it's even had a chance. I mean, I'm sorry. To me, that's almost worse. To
Yes,
me, I mean, gosh, at least somebody had 10, 20 years to make some sort of influence or something. You're not even giving them a chance. It's
exactly.
like, how selfish can you be? Like, but that it's not about like, and in their minds, it's not about that new life. It's just so selfish to me.
Yes.
It's like, how can you steal that is a new life. How can you steal that away from somebody else and somehow
Yeah.
justify it? Anyway, sorry,
Well,
to
no, no,
me, it's like,
it is a heated one, an argument that the church has to address. And not everyone's going to be an abolitionist, obviously, but for us and for my family and I, we go out there and we point that out because we believe it's mandated by God.
mhm,
We know that Psalm 139 says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. in the womb. So
Mhm.
we created by God in the womb. So we are recognized by Him as a human being. People are in our adventures going out there to the schools, you'll find, people calling that person in the womb a clump of cells, that they don't
No,
have a thought process during that level of development.
that's a
So,
life.
so exactly. Basically, we turn it around on them and say, you know what? That's what the Germans did. They had to dehumanize another group of people and call them bacteria, non human, to justify the
Mhm.
murder of the Jews. And so
Right.
that's happening right now. Everything is actually being done to dehumanize that person in the womb to justify the awful killing of that human in the womb.
Yes.
So basically, our biblical stance is to, hey, let's end abortion now, because as we speak right now, the laws in this beautiful country make exceptions for the woman to murder their child. I can't go down the street and kill the clerk at the store and not suffer the consequences for that. But a mother has special exceptions made for her to kill her unborn child.
But why is there a law that if somebody kills a mother that's pregnant, that's a double homicide?
Exactly.
Why,
Exactly.
why is that? Why isn't only one why is it not a single homicide?
You want to know
It
the answer, Justin?
yeah.
Because there's pro-life movements who, when introducing a law that says, "Let's make it criminal," they say the woman is a victim of abortion. She is not a willing participant. She is a victim, so we can't charge her
How?
with that homicide.
My gosh. I
Yeah,
don't know, that just
I'm gonna
sounds
refer you to
crazy.
that six-part series, and I think it's gonna blow your mind away when you make certain discoveries as to why we're in the current state that we're in. Most
Yeah.
pro-life movements also say that it's not about religion, it's about education. Whoa,
Mhm.
wait a minute. Religion has everything to do with it, but
Yeah.
they say it isn't.
Huh. Yeah, I don't
So
even like the idea of pro-life or any of these terms or abortion.
right.
Gosh, it's just it's killing, it's ending a life, it's
Yeah,
ending a human. I mean, how can you say just because it's not in the belly anymore, it's not a human? I mean, when that spark happens, I mean, that's what I wish everybody could see.
when
I
life
wish
is
we could
created,
just
yes.
yeah, I wish we could just spend millions of dollars on an advertisement and show every single person in the world what happens when life is created. There is a spark. I mean, there is a God spark and new life is created. Boom, right there. That's life. And if
Yeah.
somebody is going to choose to end that, they should be held responsible.
You
To
know
me,
the scary
it's
part
like, it's
you know
night
what
and
the scary
day. I
part
mean,
of that
it's,
is,
yeah,
Justin? The scary part is that they know that. But like Paul says in the book of Romans chapter 1, that they are willing to deceive themselves, to believe a lie over the truth, to suppress the truth with a lie.
yeah.
So that is what's scary when we go out there and actually witness to people and protest abortion. They tell you, yeah, and sometimes they're like, yeah, we know it's a human. We
Hmm.
and when these activists go to abortion mills, you'll hear the mother plainly say, "Yeah, we know we're killing." As a matter of fact, Planned Parenthood admits that there is a human in the womb conceived, or a human in the womb through conception at the moment of conception. They admit it.
Hmm.
They know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the scary part. But like Paul says, they suppress the truth for a lie.
Well, I don't have a lot of personal testimony as far as men that have dealt with abortion. I have a few cousins but to me, for some reason, it doesn't affect them as much. But the
Right.
women I know in my life that have made those decisions and
Right.
killed their own children,
Right.
I'm sorry. I mean, there's three of them I could think right in my head right now. All three of them are so messed up mentally.
Yes.
They are in constant therapy.
Yep.
They can't even hold a job, and of course, they would never admit that it has anything to do with that decision they made. But
Right.
me looking from the outside, it's like, I know that you chose to kill your own baby, and now you have all these mental issues, and of course, it's always some other reason. It's because this happened to them or that happened, and it's like, "No! You have mental problems because you killed your baby." And that's a thing that I don't really think gets discussed enough. It's like you're not only messing up God's plan, and I think God can still. I don't know how that works with God's plan and all that. Obviously, it's perfect, and but
Well, no, I
you're
mean,
not
on
only
the other spectrum, there's a reason for that. I mean, we're told in John 10:10 that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So what they don't realize is when you get an abortion, the devil's plan is to kill the family. It's an attack on the family. You kill the baby, really don't have a mother anymore. You don't have a father, you don't have a family. The scary
Mhm.
part is they continue to be a mother. They got rid of a baby who is now in heaven that God considers that woman a mother still.
Yeah,
So there is
yeah.
forgiveness in Jesus Christ. There is forgiveness for the sin of abortion, for
Well,
murder in the womb.
the women that I know aren't willing to accept the fact that they aren't willing to repent, if you will. They're
Right,
not willing to admit that they did something wrong, and I think that's you know, I think it's pretty well known that there's like certain stages for grief or things like that, or you know, there's also like with AA. I think there's you know one of the very first things is accepting that you messed up or you have a problem or something like that, you know, and they're not
right,
even willing to admit that that decision of theirs was a bad one, you know. So to me, it's like, hey, as soon as you do that, you might be on the path to recovery,
right.
but until you're ready to come to that moment and you're willing to like say, "Hey, maybe I made a mistake here," there's no what do you think about that? Do you think there's
Well, yeah,
do
no,
you
so,
agree
like,
with that?
in my our witnessing at colleges, I'll let them go to a certain time because we'll go back and forth, and I'll try to give them an explanation, they'll try to give their explanation, but at the end of the day, the gospel message needs to be preached, and
Mhm,
introduced to them, and I stopped them. Okay, when I think we've had enough of going back and forth on why you're right and why I'm right, at the end of the
mhm,
day, it's a matter of sin. That we've
right,
made our choices because God was not in our life, and
mhm,
Jesus died on the cross for me and you, for sins past, present, and future, and that impression has to be left. My job is not the results, mine is the obedience. So
yeah,
we are supposed to preach the word in truth in love, and God will give the increase. When I confront an irate woman or person, whoever it is I'm talking to, and they say, "Well, why are you showing pictures of aborted babies? You shouldn't beat people over the head." I tell them, "Look, this is not me doing it. I'm presenting the truth in love. But if you're feeling a tug in your heart, Jesus said he was going to leave, but when he leaves, he's going to leave a helper, and he's going to
mhm,
convict the world of sin, righteousness, and judgment." So, what you're feeling right now is actually God tugging at your heart that you know, and I know, and everybody knows that this is wrong. And
right,
Jesus was asked, which is the greatest commandment? And he answered and said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength." And
yeah,
he responded, "The second one is as the first. You shall love your neighbor as
yes,
yourself." And this is why I do what I do with my family. We go out
yes,
there and it's a sin. It's a sin that involves the church. And if we're quiet about it, then you know what? How does not God look at the church? I mean, I personally get convicted when I go. I shouldn't, but I can't worship comfortably knowing that in California alone, we've murdered enough babies to match the population of Canada and some.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I ask you, where is the power of the gospel? Why
right,
aren't we out there? Why aren't we combining politics with the gospel? We're supposed to
yes.
do that.
Yes, I agree. Man,
So
thank God for you. Thank God for you. I think when God made you in your mother's womb that he had this plan for you and you're following it. I mean, not but everybody has the courage to do that, you know? I mean, I think a lot of people kind of know maybe, you know, or generally have an idea, but a lot of times it's that courage, you know, it's that convict or I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, you've made some right choices and you're going in the right direction. So thank God for you.
it's all obedience, thank God. And, if you
Mhm.
don't mind, before we finish, I'd like to shout out
Yeah,
to other abolitionists out there.
of course.
Jacob Alice up in the Sacramento area. He's actually by the Capitol. He's doing what he can.
Mhm.
Joseph out in the Temecula area. Shout out to you. And then here in Beaumont, we have Justin, I believe, and other abolitionists that I've worked with in Cal State LA. I mean Cal State Fullerton and
Mhm.
UCLA. We're
Well, what we can do is put their names actually in the description
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's a
we'll do
big
that.
thing. When we put those names in the description, if anybody searches those names, they'll actually find this episode.
Yes, I like to bring awareness to this, and
Yeah,
and
so when I
it
send you that description, that's critical, so we gotta make sure to get everything in there that we want, and it can be long,
sure.
so we can get everything in there.
Sure. Let's find our place in the ecclesia, man. We have our
Yes.
mandates. There's no questions. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. We are told to be obedient to God's word, and regardless of anyone getting insulted, our fingers in their face.
Can I ask you a few more questions? Because
Sure.
I still
Let's
am.
do
I
it.
mean, you've kinda said, like you've kind of briefly touched on the differences between pro-life, and I kinda have a general understanding, but do you have, like, 3 points or 2 points or 4 some sort of general or, 3 distinct things between the pro-life movement and the abolitionist movement?
Yes. So the pro-life movement and the abolitionist movements are 2 sides of the spectrum. They're 2 different religions.
Okay,
From our point of view, from the abolitionist point of view, we are more than anything biblically based. It
okay,
has to be from the Bible.
okay.
And so aside from pointing that out, we present the gospel and pointing out the abomination of abortion, whereas the pro-life movement, as I explained, they're doing everything against anything having to do with the Bible. They tell you that it's about science education and not religion. It's
Really?
not about. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So pro-life is not based in any kind of gospel message or religion or anything,
No,
they say it's, like, science-based. Okay,
let me point out someone who I won't bite my tongue to mention is Kirsten Hawkins
uh-huh,
with Students for Life. If you look them up, she'll probably tell you that they even have, atheists on board to fight the abortion issue.
uh-huh. Huh.
I don't know about you, but that kinda is a contradiction right there.
Yeah, I've never even thought about that idea before, I have to think more about that.
Yeah, so that doesn't work, and when she goes in CNN and tells you, "Yeah, it's not religion that tells me abortion is wrong, it's science." Oh, whoa, wait a
It's
minute.
science. Huh.
Yeah,
Well, what about science? I mean, to me, I don't know, people when I learned science, it was the scientific theory, it was the idea of coming up with a theory, testing the theory, and then publishing your results. It's
yes,
so weird that when people talk about science, when I learned science in school, it was more about like a methodology from
right.
testing something. And people take science like it's some like basis of data or something like that. I don't know. It's so weird to me.
Trust the science, we have 200 genders now.
Yeah.
A guy can be a girl and a girl can be a guy, and it's like, "Really?
Yeah.
Okay." And so,
Yeah, what scientific study? What was the theory on that? I mean, like, what? I just don't
yeah,
understand. People say the word science, like, and I guess, well, it's the same if the people use the word religion, you know what I mean? It's like,
right,
what do those words even mean? Like, it's
right.
just it's so much more than yeah, sorry.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
that's fine. I mean, our religious argument has more foundation to it than any other,
Uh-huh.
and people need to recognize that they can't shy away from the truth we hold in Scripture. So
Mhm.
even an atheist has a problem with their argument because they have no ground to stand on as far as referencing their morality. They have to borrow from ours.
Mhm.
And like Frank Turek says, I like the pattern that he gives. Evil needs good, and good needs
Mhm.
evil, and that's how you find the distinction. But more than that is good needs God, because God is the arbiter of what's right and what's wrong. So in order for me to know what a crooked line is, I have to know what a straight line is.
Right.
So this is why I don't shy away from atheists either, because I tell them to their face, no, wait a minute, you're borrowing from my worldview. Because
Mhm.
what if a pedophile comes up to you and says, you're not moral because I'm moral. My morality says I can fondle little children.
Mhm.
So what argument do you have towards that? It doesn't matter. We all come from a clump of cells. They have no leg to stand on. They have to borrow from our God, our morality. And so we
Yeah.
confront that and we put it in their face that you're wrong
Yeah.
and that you have to give an account to what you do here on earth, because it's appointed for man to die once, then this the judgment. As in
Yeah.
he as in Hebrews, what we read in Hebrews.
Okay.
We're all, we have the again, like I said, the world thinks they have good questions, but the Bible has great answers.
Absolutely. Let me actually let me s you got me thinking now about the idea of the pro-life movement saying that they're based in science. And let me just play the devil's advocate a little bit
Sure.
here. So, if the scientific or if the theory was that life began at conception,
Right.
and they tested that theory, and then the result was yes, life did begin at conception. Well, I
Right.
guess in that way I can kind of, it doesn't take away from your and my beliefs about the truth or about the good news or anything like that, but I guess is that kind of, maybe I don't mean to
So the reason,
mess
let me
up
explain
what,
that,
yeah.
Justin. Let me explain that. So the reason they have to go that route is because the laws being introduced are to criminalize abortion, right? So
Okay.
they want equal protection under the law for all humans, in the womb and outside the womb. So why they have to say that?
Your group or pro life?
No, so the pro life stand, or so yeah, abolitionists believes equal justice under the law for all humans.
Yes, got that. But pro
Okay,
life
so what
doesn't
they
believe that.
so pro life, the reason why they have to put it in science, because and have to almost leave the religious argument out of it, is because they do not want to punish the woman or the mother who just aborted their baby, because they are victims. They paint them out to be victims. What is that called? That's called equal weights, unequal weights and measures. So in the
Hmm.
Bible, we're told in Proverbs 17:15, he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the just, both of them alike are an abomination to the Lord. So this is an injustice, that we give special murder rights to mothers, and we refuse to prosecute them, and that is the pro-life position. Oh,
So I don't understand. So the pro-life position is that a mother can murder their baby, but there's no consequences for it. Then,
exactly.
but their position also is that it's wrong. I don't understand. That seems like a
Yes,
double
exactly.
standard to me.
Exactly, that's exactly it.
Well, I don't.
Okay,
It
so
doesn't make any
here
sense to me.
In America, we have 14 states that have made abortion illegal, and so all these pro-life movements on their websites and everywhere you can look them up, they said, "Hey, we have victory." There's actually 14 states in America that have outlawed abortion, but it's a
Okay.
lie, because in those laws that they've passed as pro-life laws that have made
Uh huh.
abortion illegal, they make special exemptions for the mother, that if they partake in taking a pill, or they actually perform an abortion on their own, they are not to be criminalized. So it's a lie.
Hmm. So basically, they're just saying that other doctors can't
Yes.
do it. Is that kind of okay? So
Yes. So
basically,
all their
they're
brick
saying
and
it's a
mortar places,
victory. Yeah, they're
yes,
saying
all
it's a
their brick and
victory
mortars
that
closed down.
okay, so they're saying it's a victory that the doctors or brick and mortar can't do it. However, if
Ye
the mother chooses to kill her own baby, there's no consequences for
There's
that,
no
and that's
con
where you guys take the step further and say, "Hey, wait a minute. How is that?" It's still killing a life.
Yes.
Is that because if the
Yes.
mother killed their baby at 1 month old, I mean, after the baby was delivered and then they killed the baby, there would be consequences for that, correct?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you're saying that the pro-life movement is saying no consequences before the baby is delivered, but after the baby is delivered, there is consequences. But okay, I think I got it. Yeah, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
So
That's so
you're seeing the evil now. The devil's in the details, and this is why
right.
I'm an abolitionist. Because when you dig
Yes.
in and you find that out, hey, wait a minute, God has something to say about that. That's called
Yeah.
partiality. We're told over and over that if we make special privileges for one group and not the others, that's called partiality, and God hates it.
Yeah.
So, in
Do
fact,
you
Proverbs 18, verse 5 says, "It is not good to show partiality to the wicked, or to overthrow the righteous in judgment." So when we show
so
partiality, we're making special murder exceptions. We
right.
can't do
So
that.
it's not actually 2 or 3 points. It's really kind of that's that one big difference. It's
Yes.
okay, well, that's a huge difference. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
that's very big. Do
Yeah.
you, and if you don't wanna answer this personal question, you don't have to, but do you
Sure.
you know how I didn't say their names or anything, and I would never do that, but do you know any women in your life that have do you see any of that same stuff that I've seen about that mental kind of health, issues when women have that any women in your life or that you know about that have chosen to make that choice? Have you
I
seen
personally
do you
know of family
okay.
members who have had an abortion, and it's interesting because it's like the opposite side of the spectrum, to where it didn't deprive them of a good life in the sense that,
Uh-huh.
they're successful, but I'm sure spiritually it has done something. Is it visible? Not really. Not from who I know has had it.
Okay. Well, maybe they choose to kinda repent and realize that they made a choice, or are they just
Right.
able to maybe they're super resilient and they're able to kinda, get past that somehow?
Exactly. I can't tell you. I don't know, even though I do know this person. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
You know what bothers me the most is
Mm.
actually Christians, people who call themselves believers and make the argument for abortion. That's what bothers me
Yeah,
because I see it a
I
lot.
can't understand that to me. I just I don't, but I mean, a lot of times that's what it is, Raul. I mean, a lot of people I feel like make exceptions for things that happened in their life. Like I don't want to get too much on this topic, but I believe in the Bible when it talks about people being saved or born again, like the Ethiopian in the
Right.
Bible, he says, well, what do I got to do? I mean, to me, I'm not saying if you haven't been baptized, you're not saved. I would never make that statement.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people that will say, "Oh, you don't have to be baptized to be saved." A lot of times the reason why is they know somebody in their life that wasn't baptized and they don't want to say that that person wasn't saved. And anyway, so I just do know a lot of people take their own personal things that happen in their life and, kind of use those to try to say that, oh, this is the way how you do it or this is, and
Sure.
I think what you're so bold and it's like none of that stuff matters.
Right.
This is what scripture says. This is what Jesus says. This is
Yeah.
what he wanted to teach us, and this is what I'm trying to teach you. I mean, I
Right.
feel like that's kind of what your message is, and I
Yeah,
love that.
we can't be partial to, it's solely we don't fear man. We fear God.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I can't figure out how we can go to church and believe that God parted the Red Seas for the Israelites and he did so many miracles and not believe that God can be a big integral part in our life where he can do the same today for us if we seek him, if we repent, if we just obey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and teach our children, our kids within our homes, and that I think what happened to Charlie is starting to bring an awakening to all of that, that we're getting
Well,
all
actually, I was
bold
gonna
and
ask you about that. Do you think the 2 movements can kinda work, the turning point movement and, the abolitionist movement can kinda work in tandem or
that
in parallel?
six-part series is very disheartening because they actually find a clip with Charlie saying that they don't believe that the woman who gets an abortion should be criminalized. So, but
Mm,
I think that's because pro-life movements actually have had his ear, and
mhm.
we didn't live to see him change his mind and say, "You know what? I changed my mind. I'm an abolitionist." So,
Yeah.
that's part of being in the political scene, but no, we have to be in the political scene to say it's wrong,
Yeah.
because God says it, not because I say it.
I mean, he was a man, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
gone
I don't
pretty
blame him for
deep
it.
and yeah, and watched a lot of things he said, and I did see him, say certain things, and then later on kinda be like, "Well, I now have this new information," and,
Yeah.
because it is interesting, I think really at the end of the day, us as Christians, we take our stand on Jesus coming, dying for our sins, and being raised on the third day. All the other stuff is, I mean, there's different degrees of how important stuff is, like, should there be a kitchen in a church or not? That's really not that important. But
Right,
sometimes people split and go different directions because of it. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say, well, what degree of importance is this issue and what degree of importance is that issue. I think it's also a cultural thing too. I don't think the idea of killing babies was much of an issue when the Bible was written. I think the idea of
right,
killing a baby was insanity. I mean, and it's just recently that, that Satan has injected this into our culture that it's somehow okay to kill a child. I mean, I think that, I don't know what you think about that, but, I don't know if do you ever hear that as an argument? People say
Well,
like, well, it's not really talked about in the Bible or anything, or,
yeah, well, unfortunately, Justin, there's nothing new under the sun. Abortion is one of those things that our society has, but it did also happen in the Old Testament among of all people, the people of God, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And then you read that in like Leviticus 20, where God forbids the practice of child sacrifice to Moloch, uh,
Mhm.
to the children of Israel. So they actually are guilty of that too, and they woke up eventually,
Yeah.
but in our
But
society.
I think it's interesting the idea that somehow there's some sort of difference between the child in the womb versus the child outside the womb. I think that
Yeah, there's a
concept for
location now. Yeah, it's just location really, because when they used to sacrifice their kid, it was out of the womb into the hands of
right.
a fire, a molten, statue with their arms stretched out. So,
Yeah.
now it's in the womb because the science actually has progressed, and now
Yeah.
we do sacrifice our babies on the altar of Moloch now, and,
Yeah.
it's very much spiritual now as it was then.
Yeah. Well, I really wanna get this going, Raul, with the whole in this valley. I want this valley to be a stronghold for truth and for the good news, and,
Absolutely.
I think with my folks, this FCIM thing they're doing and your movement here and, the turning point, I think, is important just because of the momentum that kinda has going. So I think between, like, 4 I think it's hard to really kinda get the churches involved. I would love for all the churches to be involved,
Sure.
but I think sometimes egos get involved and, "Oh, you're
I
stealing our
agree.
members," or, things like that. So, I think it's gonna be more organizations like that we're trying to do that aren't
Sure.
really about, like, some building or some, making payroll or covering facility cost, things
Yeah.
like that. I think it's gonna be movements like what we have going on that are really gonna make a difference here in this valley. So, I hope to see you on the 14th. I just while we're on this podcast, she got back to me and said that the flyer is coming out in about a half an hour. So as soon
Nice.
as I get that, I'll send that to you, and then I'll put
Please
it
send
on,
it to me. I'd like to support
yeah,
it. I mean, wherever God and politics is involved, I wanna take part in it because that is our mandate to
yeah.
contend in the ecclesia, in the public square.
Absolutely. Do you have any I had this question at the end, I don't know if it's relevant now, but it was just any kind of message for if there's a younger person listening that maybe is kinda undecided or anything. I guess we've kinda maybe exhausted anything, but do you have any way you kinda wanna finish up the podcast or anything else that you really wanna touch on?
I think the main focus here is Jesus. The younger you are, be mentored in a church, either your family, like me per se, my parents were not believers. I was
Mhm,
the only believer in my household, and I had to, search it out and do my walk. But there were people, good people to disciple me and have me by their
mhm,
side. And so do what you can, let God be true and every man a liar.
mhm.
Find out what your calling is and get involved because our society, we can't let it fall apart. And the only one
No.
who can put it together is Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus, but I think he needs us. I mean, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
and then
no, and that's what I mean. Find your position, find your place, get involved,
right.
get
I
involved.
think we matter, we really do matter. The decisions we make actually matter, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that's where we err because yeah, in a church, we have little things here and there going, but we need strong places we can go to for apologetics, for activism, for the political arena, and this is where we should, as a church, have those departments very solid foundation that everybody can walk into and take a part of and be more structured, like more properly,
Yes.
biblically based.
Okay, I'm gonna end on that. Thank you so much, Raul. Nothing else, right?
Thank you,
We're
Justin.
good there?
Yeah,
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 okay,
we're
I'm
good.
gonna send everything to you, and, let's make sure to get that description really good because I think there was a bunch of things you touched on that I wanna get on there, so if people are searching for things, they can find
Absolutely.
them and they can find this podcast. Okay.
Thank you,
Alright,
Justin.
Raul, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.